Papercut here, back with a replay review. This time we're going to get to see the play of the Navneet. The Navneet is what I'm guessing it's pronounced. Get to watch my first Civ Love, Dehli. I used to play Dehli a whole lot. I started off on HRE Dehli as like one of my first Civs I played. So really fun to watch Dehli gameplay. So we have a match against a French player. Before we jumped in, I want to talk about Dehli as a Civ. As always in a lot of these reviews, we start with what is your Civ good at, what is the opponent's Civ good at, how do you match that. Dehli right now is one of the hardest Civs to play because it is in a way one-dimensional, and also and people who've played the game a while know what you're going to do and react accordingly. And two, your margin for error is very thin. You have to react quickly and well to what the opponent's doing, and hit your timings perfectly, especially depending on the matchup. So for example, in this matchup against French, you have a really thin margin of when Feudal is the fight for you, and then you need to get to Castle. Because generally, if you stay in Feudal forever with a French player, you are probably going to lose. Their eco and their units are just going to be better than yours with knights. And so your goal is to take an advantage in Feudal and push it to Castle, generally. So we want to watch what moves are used here, where does he go wrong, where can he do better, and what he does well. And as always, at the end, stamp the big takeaways and thought processes they should be using going forward. So let's go. So you start out with a crisp Dehli opening. Dehli always opens 5 on wood, and then 1 building a mill, and then you do a mosque, and then you do a house. Now you could do 1 round of wood gathering or 2 rounds of wood gathering. You decided to do 2 rounds of wood gathering, just get a mill, lumber camp, and gold veins straight off the bat. When I did it, I usually did 1 round of wood gathering, just get the food faster. Especially against French. Especially good French players who know how to get up with a really strong timing. The difference between going straight to food off 1 wood drop off and off 2 wood drop offs does kind of matter. But whatever way you want to do it, it works. You mostly do a lumber camp early just so that you can get the wood cutting upgrade, which isn't the most important upgrade in the world, but whatever. You do the correct upgrade split, you do wheelbarrow and then survival techniques, you get a good time on your mosque upgrades, and you are scouting. For those of you who don't know, scouting with Dehli is a little bit more unique because since you're on berries, you can be more aggressive with your scouting. So you notice he goes almost all the way up and then back down and around. The goal should be to drop off the sheep, go back up and around, and you should be back up at his base looking at what he's doing when he's aging up. The key being, is he going to stone to get a second TC, or is he going hard feudal push? And your response would be slightly different. In a way, you do the same thing. You're going to build units and you're going to push into sacred sites. If he's going to 1 TC, though, you actually have a chance to kind of push this and almost win this in feudal. If he goes 2 TC, you need to take advantage of the timing, where it's going to take him a little bit to get an army out, for you to mass up, keep him in his base, and get on sacred sites before he can break out. He's going to be aggressive on you. So you're going to get a good amount of sheep, drop them off. You age up with a Tower of Victory, which is the correct move here. Generally, Tower of Victory is the way to go. This is going to make your spears a lot more effective, and then in Castle, it will make your crossbows a lot more effective, which are both things you need to fight against a French Civ and their cavalry. It also makes your hand cannoneers really good if this game ends up in Imperial. Small thing I wanted to point out. You got enough gold to get your second scholar, which is exactly what you're supposed to do, but then you were late to move these villagers off of gold. You don't need this 80 gold. As like small as it sounds, you should have pulled the villagers the second you had enough for gold and put them on wood, or gone to the stone, which is what you're doing right now. Because those are 80 resources that could be spent differently. Those could be 80 resources that make a barracks, which allows you to get a spearman out earlier. I know you want to go 2 TC, which I don't know how great the 2 TC is against French. I haven't tested it a lot. You could have won this game, so that's to say. So that what I mean by that is that you made it work in a way. but it's really dangerous when you're trying to get the second TC and the French player is getting knights on the field and making it difficult for you. So you're going to watch, he's up, and that means you know his knight's coming. You finally come out and check, and you notice his villagers are coming out to the hunt. What you need to do instead of following him out, you should have followed the knight down, because you need to know where his knight's going, which will help you a lot more. Your goal now is that you need to get a barracks out, a stable out, and then a blacksmith up. Would be the next things that we really need to see ASAP. And you notice how going for this you're doing a greedy TC here, because right now you're trying to get all the material for a TC and then drop it without any units, which is impossible against a French player. But you need units. So what should have happened is that you should just drop the barracks the second you had the wood for it. And you should have kept like 6 or 7 on food, so that you had the food to get out a spearman or 2. Because then, boom, you're going to lose a vill right there. And having your scout just stand on the hunt here isn't helping you. This scout should be rotating around outside. You need to check his stone. Is he going second TC? Has he dropped an archery? Has he dropped a... What is it? Oh my god, what's it called? Yeah, an archery range. Has he dropped an archery range? What's he macroing up to? Because right now you are going with no information, though it is good to know that if you can get some units out, you can attack that hunt. And that's one of the weaknesses of French. They need so much food for their knights that if you can somehow get a couple units up to their resources, that's going to be really important. So he has effectively delayed your second TC. You're only able to get 130 stone, and you have to start putting up walls. Basically, the walls you need is this one right here, and a wall that crosses here would be really, really good. But you also don't want to spend too many resources on walls because you need units. So at this point, you get a blacksmith down. I would say getting a stable down is more important than a blacksmith at this point in time, just because you know you have spears. Any French player worth their salt is going to start getting archers down here. And you hard massing Ghazis is actually a really effective strategy. Especially if he refuses to go into spears, just hard massing Ghazi raiders is good both for your ability to raid and for taking out his archers. Because back here, he takes out another vill. You go back and you're going to force second TC. I mean, you're kind of committed to it, I get it. But here's what I mean about the advantages of Dehli. Dehli's advantage against almost any civ is their early feudal. Why is that? You get all the upgrades for free, and you can put your scholars in your production buildings, and they can produce units faster than anyone else. So there is a brief period where you can get more units on the field because you don't have to, because you don't need to build extra production, so you're not wasting wood. You don't have to have vills on gold, so you can have extra vills on food and wood. And your villagers are more efficient because they have all the upgrades for free. So you have this period in the early feudal game where you can produce more units, your economy is more effective, and you can take the space. The big issue I have with the second TC, and I did mess around with second TC a bit before I stopped playing, before I switched over to other civs, is that it takes away this early impact that you have through this free tech. Because if take this 250 stone and put it on food, all of a sudden you have double, maybe triple the military, and you could push out onto him, because at the current amount of units he has, he probably wins second TC. And if that's the case, you can then push him back. You can push him off his hunt to slow him down. You can send a couple spears out to the different sacred sites and build walls around them, because really you need these sacred sites. And the goal is you use your early feudal advantage to push him back, take the sacred sites, and then get to castle as soon as possible, and then defend his push when he comes in off that castle. And then you're catching up on eco through the sacred sites, through the through grabbing the relics, because you should hit castle first, so you can grab the relics. And then through my suggestion, you go compound the defender, drop keeps, and get villagers from keeps. That's how you catch up. Because if you get sucked into staying in feudal too long, he's just going to beat you, in my opinion. But this wall here, and this is what I mean about wasting resources. This wall doesn't really get you anything. It blocks him from rushing into the wood right here, but that's, in my opinion, not worth the wood you spent on here when you have the spears right here. It would have been actually more effective just to send like 2 spears over here and use that wall to set up this sacred site to sneak a scholar out there. So now you see his comp, 3 archers, 5 knights, and I bet he's going to start really massing archers. You need to get Gazis out immediately. You have an overabundance of wood because you've been macroed to the second TC so hard. Let's actually see, is he on 2 TC right now? He's not yet. Okay. So this actually makes the point even better, is that he's doing a very slow second TC. And he only has this amount of units on 1 TC. If you had just made units early, that would have been the advantage. You could have pushed him off food. You could have been harassing his wood. You could have pushed him off gold. Like you most likely could have massed enough units to keep him off gold, and then that would have just ruined his game from the jump. Because right now, you're on 27 vills. He's on 35 vills, which tells me you probably missed vills a couple times. Well, he did kill a few. And when he gets second TC up, he's just going to be able to make villagers faster than you anyway. You are spending resources well, though. You're getting out units. You need a lot more Gazi raiders. And you need a scholar in here to pump. So this should help right here. You do a good job. You get this wall up, but then once again, since you didn't do this wall originally, this is kind of a wastable wood wall here. But you will get these berries, which is really nice. But this only really secured this berries, this stone, and this wood line. Sweet. He starts building a tower here, and honestly, this is a good tower by him. It will push you off this wood line. But to be direct, a more effective French player would be in your grill right now a little bit more. One, he macroed very poorly. Look at the resources right here. He has 800 food, but not enough gold to buy knights. And he has no wood for archers. If he had macroed better, he would have more knights, and he'd be kind of pushing you at this point. Against French, you have to win an early engagement so he cannot mass, and then you need to mess up his eco. At no point how you even gear towards his eco. You've also lost sight. You should make a second scout and keep it with the army and have your other scout up here, because you need to constantly know what is he doing. Is he at any point putting a bunch of villagers on gold and going to castle? Is he dropping more production so he's staying in feudal? Like, you need that info to help out. Now, you catch him right here. This was really bad by him. He should not have just ran his knights in like this. He should have brought his archers up first, and then when you came with Gazis, he then brings his cavalry up. This is just a dumb move by him. But you take advantage of it, and you're going to run him back. So you have effectively defended. You're going to keep running him down. That's beautiful. You need to keep producing, send these up here. You should... I hope that you have what I call a cycle going on. A cycle is when you're in the middle of an RTS game and you're consistently going to the things you need to do. Because in these games, there's so many things you have to remember. My cycle is villagers, eco, units, scouting. So I'm constantly going through those, what I need to do. Am I making villagers? Check. Check my eco. I have a lot of wood. So much wood that I should either A, build more production, or B, pull 4 villagers off and send them to the deer and start gathering this resource. You have now taken map control. You need to start taking these resources. Deer here, deer here. Units. Am I making units? I need to keep making units. I have this advantage. I don't want to lose it. Second, and then lastly, scouting. Do I know what's going on? And if you're fighting, you still need to keep that cycle while you're fighting. Only the fight is the second. You keep checking the fight. So you do villagers, fight. Eco, fight. Units, fight. Like, that makes sense, but you have to always be doing all these things at all times. Small thing that I missed when you did it, you should always read, against the French, with your comp, you should have researched Iron Undermesh first to protect against their arrow fire, and then you should have done Bloomery first, because the Knight's melee attack is so strong that Insulated Helm doesn't really give you much. Like, +1 defense against how strong his attack is doesn't really do much. Instead, you should have done Bloomery, because that would help your attacks a lot more. Spearman doing 9 instead of 8, Ghazi's doing 13 instead of 12 matters a lot more. Just a small heads up. Alright, so here, it's where you throw the game. One of the biggest issues players have, I mean, all the way up to like the highest ranks. Like, if you've watched some of the higher, I mean, I've watched a lot of high level players talk about the game, and the thing they always mention is how players in Diamond, Platinum, Low Conqueror, all the way down, aren't aggressive when they should be. Are not decisive and take advantage. You have just pushed him back into his base. You are raiding. You're pushing him off gold, and these are all the units he has. He's not hiding any more units. This is it. You have taken the map control, and you're pushing him in his base. You at this point should not. You need to keep the pedal to the metal. You should be rallying units right up to the front. You should be killing the rest of these units, and you need to be killing as many villager kills as possible. You know where the resources are. Check the hunt. Check the glow back here. Check the wood line. He put up a second TC, but he's not on food. So the second you can push him off food, he's done. Like, he's gonna run out of food in a minute. And then you've kept him hemmed in. And then once he runs out of food, he's sunk. But you do what a lot of players, I mean, I've done this too, where you revert to your game plan instead of adjusting to what is offering you. Your game plan is you want sacred sites. So instead of taking advantage and using the advantage you've gotten from that fight, you're going to just back up. Why are we backing up? Why? If you want to get sacred sites, awesome. The best way to protect those sacred sites is keep him in his base. What you can do is basically send one, you have so much wood, send one spearman to each sacred site and have them start building the wood walls around the sacred sites. Hell, you don't even really need to wall up the sacred sites at this moment. Just send your scholars to the sacred sites. Build extra production, rally it up here, send scholars to the sacred sites, send 1 or 2 spears to each one to build the walls, and then keep fighting him. You have just given him a lifeline by not pushing your aggression. You had information, you knew how much he had, you had him off gold, and you walked away and let him survive. And not only that, he's in a terrible position. He's making a farm transition right now. That's how desperate he is. He has no food to fight you. You had him dead to rights, and you walked away and let him get back in the game. Here's what I would push you to do. In your upcoming games, especially as Dehli, Dehli is about aggressiveness. When you feel like you've won a fight and you're pushing back the base, be over aggressive. Try to get as many villagers as you can. Now, don't just send her to the TC, right? But get in there, destroy production buildings, kill villagers, prevent him from getting resources. And what's going to happen is, first few times you're going to lose because you're going to lose too many villagers. But you'll also realize what it takes to be that aggressive, and then from then on you'll be a much more effective Dehli player, because you might not always kill them in their base right here, but what you can do is starve them so that when you go castle you are just at a much better advantage. But you let him lick his wounds, and you let his double TC kick in. You also could have just walked around here, found his double TC, and killed it. Like, once you won this fight, pushed him back, go kill his TC, and then he's donezo. But right now, you're at 47 vills, and he's at 65. So once he gets these farms up, starts going, he's going to be all over you. I want to go back to the macro point. You're building a tower. Why? He's in his base. 2, why are you on gold? You don't need to spend gold on anything. If you want more scholars, that's great, but maybe you need 2 on gold. You should instead be grabbing these pocket resources while you can, while you have map control. And you want to get to castle ASAP. This is your time to get to castle. And you should get some scholars up, because then you can send those scholars out to get these, to get the relics. But this is your time to either decisively go in and try to beat him, or keep him in his base and go castle, get your upgrades, walk in and beat him. Drop a keep or something. This also leads to, why are you getting stone? You want another TC? Are you pre-getting your castle when you go to castle? Don't do that. Get your pocket resources, keep him in his base, win the game. Instead, you're going to sit here and let him back. And you can be even more aggressive getting to sacred sites. But I want you to notice, at this point, you're at 36 military. He's at 32, so he's caught back up. His resources per minute are dominating you, so you've lost your advantage. That's what I mean. Dehli has such a thin margin of victory. You got that margin, but then you let it go. And you're going to notice that you're going to struggle to get back in the game after this. You'll win a couple more engagements, but his eco is now so good because you let him get a farm transition that he will never actually slow down. Watch what happens. It's funny, I've been watching so many replays on 4x speed. I just played a game, and when they moved at normal speed, I felt like they were in molasses. I was like, what the hell's going on? Once again, pretty good engagement. But you're delaying your castle. And then he's going to finally... And you realize, oh shit, he has... How many knights is this? He has 16 knights! And a shit ton of archers, because you let him get there. Also, once you get sacred sites, you're going to have so much gold because you don't spend gold on anything in feudalist Dehli. So you need to drop a market and start spending that gold. Drop a market, spend it on food, spend it on wood, so you can get more units out. That's your advantage. And just send a scholar over to the third sacred site. Sometimes people just miss that you're on a sacred site and let you keep it. Yeah. And you're going to clean this up, but look at his resources up here. Once again, you're lucky he doesn't macro very well. He has no gold right now. Don't know how. He has complete map control. The second he gets on gold, he's going to age up and you're done. At this point, the only way you're getting back in this game... Oh yeah, you also start making archers, which doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you making archers? He doesn't have spears. You haven't seen any spears. Your archers will do nothing to his knights, and then you can shoot archers on archers, but these would be better being Ghazi Raiders or Spearmen. Don't make units that don't counter the enemy units. But as you notice, you're losing your advantage. He has his upgrades, he has his production, he's gotten farms up. The advantage you had earlier is now gone. You could buy your way to castle right now with this gold. Which is what you need. You need castle desperately. Because now his eco is so strong. The only way you're winning this is if you hit castle and get out siege, and then you get out some knights and you raid him constantly. You need raids, and you need castle units right now. You need siege. And then he did some cheeky towers, which sucks, but that's what happens when we're not scouting. And kind of checking the map. I mean, this has happened to me plenty of times. And I've done it to other people, but also don't overreact to this. This tower isn't doing anything right now. You have enough food right here. You have wood right here. Go kill it if you can, but that's kind of what's there for it, to slow you down. So many archers, and they have nothing to shoot. So he hits castle. You're gonna hit castle. You need to keep ASAP. Once again, if he was more aggressive, this would be bad, but now you need to get relics and get up. But you notice you're just playing from behind at this point. Look how much the score is different. The score is mostly different because of how many villagers he has that you don't have. You're not even making villas fully. You're making one villager right now. You have 68 villagers, which tells me you haven't been consistent making villagers, and he has 107. Ginger got siege. Once again, he's going to take another bad engagement, but then he does something silly, and he makes men-at-arms. I've had this happen to me too. French players, you know, when people aren't afraid to go off the unit that their civ is known for, it works. He knows you have spears, so and your spears can even fight even when he's in castles. What he does, he just grabs a shit ton of men-at-arms, and you have nothing to counter them. Ghazis can. You don't have enough Ghazis. Then he just walks in. And that's the way the news goes. So, big things to take from that. You played a great early game, and you put yourself in the position to win. You just didn't fill out the advantage. So, big hits. Know your goal with Dehli. Your goal with Dehli is to use your early feudal advantage, which you have some of the strongest early feudal advantage, to then either win the game, get up so far that you can beat them in feudal, or get to castle and win there. Civs that you can beat in feudal are generally the ones who aren't knight civs, or are non-boomies, or like English, like civs that might try to feudal fight you, but you can produce more units early on. You have to be careful on the eco front, because your eco is better until the other civ is able to get like a second TC or something like that. But your advantage comes from a lot of units early with your free upgrades to then take an advantage and push on it. Either that is keeping them in their base and you go castle safely, that is killing enough villagers that you're like, I can just win this in feudal, and you build rams and you go. Whether that is any of those options, but you have to use that early game to get your advantage. Don't be afraid to take the game to castle. Delhi is really strong in castle. You can immediately make men-at-arms, you can immediately make crossbows, you can immediately make knights, and use your gold surplus to your advantage. You should have sacred sites, and you should be able to get relics first. That makes you really strong in castle. And Delhi's Imperial isn't even that bad anymore. But yeah, you need to scout to know what your opponent is doing. At no point did you actually know what your opponent was doing. Everything they did was a surprise, which is really hard to counter. Your most effective thing is if you saw him drop barracks going to castle, and you see the first men-at-arms come out, and you go, oh, I need my own men-at-arms and crossbows right now. You didn't even know he went second TC, which could have affected how you would have reacted to the whole situation. And then lastly, make sure you're reacting to what your opponent's, like, you're basing your strategy on what your opponent's good at. French really wants to stay in feudal and keep fighting, and you often do, but not against French. And push to your, and lastly, take your advantages. When you have an advantage, use it. Don't be afraid to be decisive. In fact, be overly aggressive to see what it feels like, and then find the right balance of it. But the amount of times I have lost games, I bet you have lost games, when you had an advantage, you didn't actually follow up on it, is a lot. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, let me know, or any comments or feedback. I also do direct coaching, so if you want to do paid direct coaching, I've gotten really positive reviews from it. I'd love to do it for you. Just message me about that. And follow me on Twitch. All that information is in the YouTube video description. Good luck on your next games.